Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 163 of the Guardian Project podcast. I'm your host Andy, and I've been ordering a lot of foil upgrades for Niambi, and they're all sitting here next to me. It's a real glittering stockpile.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a red card though.
It can't be played in Niambi, but it's just as shiny.
Yeah, it sure is. And I'm your other host, Mike, and last weekend I spilled my entire basic land collection all over my room. It was a disaster, but I didn't want to damage any of the good lands, so I planeswalked across them.
That poor planes. They don't get much love on our show.
No.
Please listen carefully.
And this is the podcast about Commander,
Our favorite Magic the Gathering format.
So we talked a few weeks ago about the 30th anniversary, which will have an event in Vegas coming up. But if you can't make that, there is going to be another event that is going to be held in Charlotte, North Carolina in February. So planning was pretty tight. I definitely can't make Vegas this year. It just wasn't in the cards. And if I went to Vegas, I wouldn't be playing cards. Except I guess that's a lie, because if I went, I would literally be playing cards, just not the gambling ones.
Yeah.
Well, is Magic gambling? I don't know.
Hey,
if you crack packs, I guess it could be. Yeah, so I guess maybe I'm a gambler.
So you're buying Dominaria just for Lost Legends then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. But also there's going to be another event this fall. November 11th through 13th is fall. I'm going to argue it still is, because it can be really nice on my birthday, which is a little bit after that. So, but it is the Magic Summit brought to you by Kingdoms. So that is Kingdoms Events LLC, and that is going to be in Salt Lake City, November 11th through the 13th. The actual event says that the gathering begins at the summit, and then they have some notes that you can connect with some of the most iconic content creators, decorated pros, and some of the biggest original Magic artists. There will be an unlimited Black Lotus as giveaways. It says tens of thousands of dollars in prizes and mystery treasure boxes and more. And then it says there's a guild. You can join the Kingdoms Guild, a VIP experience unrivaled by any Magic event in history. It's pretty expensive, but it says it's starting in, from the time of recording, this starts in 100 days. Ooh. So you got a few months to plan for it if you weren't able to make Vegas. But they have some special events like playing Brandon Sanderson's Dragonsteel Vintage Cube. There's some 5K events. You can play Modern Pioneer Legacy. There's going to be a Commander Arena where you can play against your favorite content creators, and then again a Black Lotus pre-release main event. There's a lot of people going to this. So I've never been to Salt Lake City. I know that there are mountains there and skiing. Yeah, and I don't know anything about Utah, I'll be honest.
There's a lot of like the salt flats and stuff. I don't know how close it is to Salt Lake City, but I imagine pretty close, where they would like.
There's the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Sure. So if you want to go to see the Housewives, you can go there. I watched that, So I don't know a lot about Utah, but I will say every time that I go to a Magic event, I try to go like 2 days early, or maybe stay 2 days after, so you can like do something while you're there. And you already paid to get there. Go do something fun. So if you're looking for somewhere else to go this year, the gathering begins at the summit. So again, November 11th through 13th.
Yeah, sounds like fun. Maybe I'll consider. I'll try to plan a nice
another trip. We went to the Rocky Mountains a few years ago for work. I had a client. I had to go visit. And I go, I'm going to Colorado. Mike, you want to go? And he goes, I actually have time to burn. Yeah. So we went on vacation together. I went to work for one of the days, and the rest of the time we did like Rocky Mountains and some really nice cities in Colorado. I'd move there too.
Oh my gosh, I would too. If you live in Colorado, get me a job.
If you're in Cherry Creek, I'm jealous, because that city was real nice, but one of the most expensive cities I think I've ever been in.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if you live in Cherry Creek, Colorado, you probably would be interested in the next thing we're talking about here, which is a T-shirt of the month club.
I thought it was that you were going to say you're editing the show on your own now.
Yeah, if you live in Cherry Creek, Colorado, and you can afford to hire me as an editor, and you like the editing on this show, guess what? I do the editing for our podcasts now. So if you have any comments or anything, you keep them to yourself. No, I'm kidding. You can you can bring them my way, and you'll go directly to the editor now. So I hope you've been enjoying the editing for the past few weeks and for the future.
Yes,
so
Mike has done
stuff.
all of it. It's been great, and Ryan has moved and is working on some really wild things, working and doing some videography and potentially some press stuff for the government. So that's really cool. So it's been great. Yeah, we're all on our own now. So I know we talked about it for a few weeks, but we are now doing the full. I say we. I make the images for the episodes now. So I do that, but I don't do the editing.
It's the pretty thing that you see that you click on first. So you get them in the door, and then I keep them there and serve them a drink. So I alluded to this a few seconds ago, but there is a brand new T-shirt of the month club subscription that is starting and available over on Amazon. This is an actual Magic the Gathering sponsored T-shirt of the month. It seems like Amazon does kind of do this for other topics and other subjects, but this one is particularly for Magic the Gathering. So if it's something that you're interested in, for $18 a month, you have options to skip months and all that. So don't worry about being tied to any sort of contract or anything. But for $18 a month, Amazon will print and ship you a custom Magic the Gathering. When I say custom, you don't get to choose. It'll be random. But it is custom artwork from Magic the Gathering, maybe some things that aren't readily available or sell or that Magic doesn't sell, which is the Coast doesn't sell. Even maybe some like niche fandom deep cuts and stuff is part of the description here over on the Amazon page. So I know I personally don't actually own a single Magic the Gathering piece of clothing, so this does appeal to me. I do hope that the first one isn't a Kelly Gray shirt that just says Magic the Gathering. I would be a little disappointed if that was the first shirt that I got. Because it's $18 for a t-shirt. I mean, it's maybe that's what a normal t-shirt costs. I don't know the last time I bought a graphic tee. Do graphic tees cost $20 now?
At Target, I don't think they do, but I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, but they do offer these in youth, men, and women's sizes.
Yes.
So you can get some exclusive shirts. So I thought this was wild seeing this come out, but if you're into the subscription stuff, I've always wanted to get a subscription to like cheeses of the month.
Oh, okay. I used to get Loot Box back in the day. I had a Loot Box subscription, which was just like random nerd stuff, and it had a different theme every month. And then I realized that I am really only a nerd about a few particular things, and some of the stuff that came, it was like, I don't want any of this stuff. This is just a bunch of junk.
I used to get Nintendo Power magazine.
Oh, I did too. I got it even after.
Is that still a thing you can get?
I'm pretty
sure.
Nintendo
Power at this point?
It was so popular. I can't imagine that it's not still going on. I think they still make Game Informer, so I imagine they would still make Nintendo Power. There's some old Nintendo Powers that are actually worth a lot of money too, if they're in good condition, like the Legend of Zelda ones. Anything featuring Legend of Zelda or Mario, I think on the front, like some of the older Mario stuff. Obviously, Mario's probably been on there a lot of times, but yeah, if you have some,
I don't know if they do. The first option is a Nintendo Power wiki, and then it takes you your next few options are eBay and retromags.com. So I don't think this is offered. Oh, there's a 12 for 12 Nintendo Power Magazine FAQ. I don't know what this means, but that is on Nintendo's site. So, man, a thing of the past. But if you're interested in subscriptions, you can get a Magic subscription. We'll have just check out below. We'll have the link to it. Mm-hmm. But before we go on, we have some people to thank. We want to thank everybody who listens to us every week, especially our patrons. We really, really appreciate all of your support. And if you want to support us, you can head to patreon.com/guardianprojectpod and donate for any dollar amount.
It's probably the best subscription we've talked about so far on this episode.
Not a magazine, though. Should we develop a magazine we send out, though? The Guardian Project magazine, but it'd have to be like annually or something. Because
that's a lot of work.
We don't have the staff to put together a full magazine. No, wouldn't that be wild?
Yeah, which one of us would be the editor? Probably you.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The new maybe it'd be a newsletter. We could do a newsletter.
Oh, we could do a newsletter.
The best we could do.
Well, you can find us online on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter by searching Guardian Project Podcast, and you can email us at guardianprojectpod@gmail.com.
Yes, reach out to us. We love hearing from you. Mike, what are we chatting about this week?
Well, Andy, I know that absolutely one of your favorite sets that you were playing standard during was Magic Origins,
so good.
featuring some of our favorite legendary creatures that flip into planeswalkers. I know that I had the opportunity to be playing while Core 2019 came out, where we got a brand new flip planeswalkers then. And so flip planeswalkers kind of, hold a special place in both of our hearts. And we wanted to take a stab at creating some of our own flip planeswalkers. So we are going to go through 6 creations that we came up with today and talk about our picks, why we chose those, and maybe some of the rulings and stuff we chose on them, and we will present to you our 6 flipwalkers.
Let's ignite some sparks. Yeah, these transforming legends honestly are some of my favorite cards, and when we did the boxing league a few years ago, this was I secured myself 2 boxes of Magic Origins because 1, I didn't have one, and I thought that was one of the best limited sets, and 2, how cool would it be if you were playing in a boxing league and everybody's playing with some cool legendaries, but you were playing with like Kithian or like the flip Liliana or the cool flip Chandra, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and then I realized in Origins, I believe those are the only legendary creatures, if memory serves correct. So my option would be open one of those 5 mythics, which is a mythic. And I mean, I still think at the time, I think you were still like a normal draft booster pack drop was like 3 to 4 mythics.
Sure.
But that meant that of all of the mythics I got, one of them had to be that. Otherwise, I just wasted a box opening it and not drafting it. So I didn't do that, but I love these transforming legends. And so we've talked about this in our Discord. We've talked about wanting to see these creatures come back so that we could see their actual Spark story. So we're going to talk about the cards we made, but also give you the story on them. So you might not be someone who follows up with the story or checks in. So you might not really know a lot about these characters. So the little bit of background and how their spark ignited, and then how we turn that into a card. So the first one that I created was Domri Raid. I started on Ravnica because why wouldn't I? So Domri Raid is a Gruul character who we've seen in card form a few times. In War of the Spark was the last time that we did get to see Domri Raid. But Domri Raid, really the backstory here is that he's from Ravnica, and he's a small human shaman that really wanted to be part of the Gruul, but was rejected initially when he was like, can I join? They were like, no. I mean, I'm sorry, just no. So he went out into the wilds and he built a relationship with like a bunch of feral beasts, and then learned to kind of command them with his magic. And then one day the Orzhov were trying to invade the Rubble Belt. So you may recognize that word. But Domri had the rage beasts kind of fight back, and he pushed the Orzhov out of the area. And at the time, their guild leader Borborygmos was like, that was pretty cool. Like, I appreciate everything you just did. And so he became an honorary member of the Gruul as a part of the Burning Tree clan. But he was like, nah, I really kind of want to be a full member. And so to become an official member of the Gruul, you have to go through a ritual. It's a ceremony where they bury you alive. It's a little vague because it's like, how long are you buried?
Well,
it doesn't say.
This is Gruul we're talking about, not black. The buried alive is a black sorcery.
So during the ceremony, though, Domri panicked and his spark ignited, and he planeswalked away. So that's kind of the story of how his spark ignited. He was undergoing a ritual of being buried alive, and I mean, I think I would panic if I was being buried alive too.
Yeah, I think so.
I hope sparks are real if that ever happened.
And that you have one.
And that I actually have one, that I am that cool. So I want to turn this into a card that I would play. So that's what we're doing today. So the card I created is Domri Gruul Initiate. I was really proud of that.
That's a good
name.
one.
It's a 3/2 human shaman for 1 red and a green. I think I like Domri's original card. 3 mana is not too bad. And Domri Gruul Initiate says non-token creatures you control have haste. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Domri's all about giving things haste. There's some cards like picture Rhythm of the Wild. Rhythm of the Wild is a really cool card from Ravnica Allegiance, and it's actually a bunch of beasts and boars that Domri's riding.
Oh, yeah.
So like it represents it. And it gives them riot. I just wanted to give them haste.
Sure.
And then the transform, right? So you exile and transform when their spark ignites. That says if Domri Gruul Initiate would be put into a graveyard, instead exile Domri Gruul Initiate and return him transformed under his owner's control. So basically he has to die of like some sort. So I thought that was really cool because being buried alive, hitting the graveyard, that's how we're gonna flip it. Honestly, I think this would be a fun commander. Just a commander that says non-token creatures you control have haste in red green. That's good.
No,
it's a 3/2, so I thought it was sufficiently powered.
Sure.
Maybe it should have said other non-token creatures you control have haste because I didn't give it haste either.
Well, that way it grants itself haste, and Domri, it attacks with the boars, like you said. It rides on top of these beasts and everything. In I like this a lot. I know we don't really want to talk about the specific wording and everything, but I do kind of like that it just says if it's put into a graveyard, you get to transform it. So if it goes in your graveyard from your library or something, you get to transform it and put it on
I didn't
there.
think about that. Okay, yeah. I mean,
I don't hate it.
Yeah,
I don't,
you
and
mill it.
And it's in Gruul,
If you
so
mill
it's like kind of like not maybe fitting totally in what Gruul tries to do in particular. So
yeah, so we are not card designers. So at the end, I want to know how many of these we made that are just broken. So now let's assume Domri. All right, so now it hits the graveyard.
Sure.
I'm going to exile it, return transformed under its owner's control. We now have Domri Wild Tamer. 3 loyalty. It has 3 abilities. +1, target creature gets +1/+0 and haste until end of turn.
Okay.
Very, very Domri. -1, target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. I love fight. We're at 3 loyalty. If you need to do it right away, you go down to 2. And then it has -5. Creatures you control get +2/+2, hexproof, vigilance, and trample until end of turn, which is Endray's Forerunners, which I thought was fitting because Domri is also all about the Endrays and Ilarg the Razeboar. Yeah. So it's the -5 for an end of turn, or for an, I guess, just until end of turn. Endray's Forerunners. I'm into this. I'd play this card.
Yeah, I do like this. I don't think it's like broken or anything.
No,
I like the -1 you could say to fight is what is when you're talking about a planeswalker, like quote unquote broken planeswalkers are ones that can protect themselves with plus ability and stuff like Oko could do by transforming something into an elk for a +1. This is fight. This requires you to have another creature on the battlefield in order to fight something, or another creature on the battlefield in order to give it a pump. It's not doing anything by itself, which is cool. I think that, and that's very Domri, right? Domri is with other beasts, powering up an army. Domri is not a solo assassin that's going in for the kill or anything.
Well, except for when he goes in for his own kill.
Well,
Spoiler
there's
alert.
that.
Bolas is like, nah, you're the worst. If you did read those novels, Domri did not have a good ending.
Yeah, don't look at the art of the card Spark Harvest. All right, just don't do that.
Oh, is that Domri?
Oh yeah, that's how people knew before the book came out and the story came out, because of the artwork of that card actually, and sort of some flavor text here and there, but. Unfortunately.
Yeah, so that'd be my Domri transforming legend. I think it would be fun, and it would be another multicolor, right? Because the Nicol Bolas one that we got to see come back in 2019 has its own flip ability, which was funny. And I will also preface this with there were some creatures that we did not choose that we're talking about today because I have no idea. We have no idea how to represent what their spark story was.
Sure.
On a card. It was like one of them, I think it was Huatli, who was battling with Angrath, and it was like, she sparked when getting beat up by Angrath. And I was like, so you have to have a Huatli deck that runs an Angrath? But I was like, I'll pass this one.
But maybe it needs to be like an Angrath creature too, because although Angrath Spark had already ignited, Angrath was just stuck. So maybe
Angrath
not.
was stuck, and Rael Zarek got stabbed and then found out that his partner was not being faithful. And I was like, I don't know how to do this one either. So Domri had one that I thought was realistic. Coyle, what is your first transforming legend?
Well, the opposite side of the, two color, a multicolor, I actually picked a colorless. And this is Karn Silver Golem, well, known as the Silver Golem. So Karn, if you're not aware of his lore, Karn is a time traveling weapon created by Urza way back in the day, represented by the card Karn Silver Golem, which is a colorless artifact. And Karn is actually part of an ultimate weapon called Legacy Weapon, and Legacy Weapon is like the combination of a bunch of the pieces that Urza left behind. So Karn really was created to be a weapon. But Karn became a planeswalker when he became part of the Legacy, and was used to, save the multiverse, save Dominaria in particular. And that is when he actually inherited Urza's spark, becoming a planeswalker. So Karn is pretty unique in that Karn never has actually had his own spark ignite. But Karn is also pretty unique in that he sacrifices his own spark and doesn't actually die. So Karn sacrificed his spark when assisting Joyra. There were time rifts that were opening on Dominaria that were ripping the multiverse apart. And through some time traveling shenanigans and Karn sacrificing his...
thanks Teferi.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the thing. Like Teferi and Karn together, they're both time traveling type of planeswalkers. So yeah, I mean, it's honestly, those old Dominaria stories confuse me so much.
Oh, there's so much story.
So he sacrifices his spark to try to help close these time rifts on Dominaria. And the weird part is he sacrifices his spark, but at the same time he does planeswalk at the same time, fleeing to the plane of Mirrodin. Mirrodin isn't the original name of that plane. That original plane name is actually Argentum, which is a plane created completely by Karn. But Karn planeswalked there, and without his spark, he was actually contaminated by glistening oil. Glistening oil, if you're not familiar, is what Phyrexians use to Phyrexifies, or complete, I guess people say nowadays. All the machines and people. And so Karn was being corrupted by this glistening oil, especially without his spark. Another planeswalker, Venser, who has worked with Karn in the past, found Karn, and they tried to purify him of this glistening oil. It didn't work. The glistening oil was about to fully corrupt Karn's heart, and because Venser was actually dying himself, he too sacrificed his spark to Karn, and Karn inherited Venser's spark. And that is the Karn we have today. It was able to fight off the glistening oil. I'm not sure if it actually purified the glistening oil away or not, or if maybe the glistening oil is still there. Maybe we'll see that in the next Dominaria
I think there's a lot of story about whether or not there's a way to fix it.
Yeah, right.
If I don't. It's a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot. That's all I can tell you.
So I wanted to incorporate the fact that Karn doesn't have his own spark. So how is Karn going to flip or whatever? So I have the Karn creature side as Karn Urza's Legacy, which is an artifact creature star for 4 generic mana, like most Karnstructs or constructs people have. Star meaning Karn Urza Legacy's power and toughness is equal to the number of artifacts you control. So there's going to be an artifacts matter Karn. As of right now, Karn is actually collecting more weapons because he wants to go blow up Phyrexia. That's last time we saw him in Dominaria a few years ago. That's what he was digging up, a bomb in the middle of Yavimaya or something like that. So that's his goal right now. And so it's still
it's a
on
1/1
theme.
for 4, and if you have a bunch more artifacts, which you'll likely do earlier on, it could be bigger.
That's
okay,
right.
I like this.
Now, the way he flips is actually kind of similar to Nicol Bolas. So the Nicol Bolas Flipwalker, actually, you paid like 7 mana with some sort of mixture of Grixis in order to flip it. So you're also going to pay mana to flip Karn, but you're also going to have to sacrifice a Planeswalker you control. So pay 4 generic mana, sacrifice a Planeswalker you control, and you exile Karn and return his flip side. So that we'll focus here on the creature side. So he's a Karnstruct for 4 that has an activated ability.
I like that. And I also, this is wild because this Karn as made would be better in a Super Friends deck.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't have very many colorless Planeswalkers other than Karn sacrificing cards.
That's true. And if you have like Nicol Bolas actually has a way to return creatures or Planeswalkers from your graveyard to the battlefield, the flip Nicol Bolas that we just mentioned. So, if you have that as your commander or something, you can, potentially sacrifice one of your Planeswalkers after activating it, return it with your Nicol Bolas, and then activate it again or something. There's definitely
interesting. Okay, that's
cool
a fun flip.
Now,
that's a fun
and
flip.
I did put the caveat here that you can only activate it at sorcery speed, because I didn't want this to actually be like, oh, I have 100 generic mana, I'm going to be able to sacrifice all my Planeswalkers at instant speed. I didn't want that part. So that's why sorcery speed only.
Okay, that's fair.
So Karn is going to flip into Karn Spark Incarnate. And maybe I should have put Incarnate as in K, just spell it.
You know, you were
K-A-R-N.
thinking it. You really wanted.
I literally didn't think
write
about
that.
it until right now, if I'm being 100% honest. So Karn is going to start with 4 loyalty, and I actually put a static ability on Karn, because when Karn loses Spark or sacrifices a Spark, Karn doesn't actually die. So when Karn Spark Incarnate's loyalty is reduced to 0 or less, I don't know if you can reduce it to less, again, not card designer, exile Karn and return Karn to the creature side. So I know it's a little maybe
wild.
If a creature attacks it or something, maybe it's not as on flavor. But if you're going to sacrifice your Spark, if you're going to reduce your loyalty all the way down.
Yeah, but if Karn losing the Spark doesn't kill Karn, that's a cool way to get it back to the other. So this is a flipping. This one's going to flip multiple times.
Yes.
That's cool.
Flip back.
I like this.
So I have 2 activatable abilities. A +2, very generic Karn ability. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Choose any number of artifacts from among them. Reveal them. Put them into your hand. Put all other cards not revealed this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. Didn't want to dig too deep. Didn't want this to be a Tron piece. And, I figured only being able to grab artifacts really isn't that big of a deal. Now, starting with
Tron being lands that can cast the original Karn for 7 mana with just 3 lands.
Yes, exactly. So I didn't want this to be something that could go. And I guess I didn't also say like or land here or anything like that. So it can't be enabled that way. So starting at 4 loyalty +2, you're going to have to be able to activate that twice to get Karn up to Karn's minus ability of -8 to exile all non-land permanents, which is typically like an Ugin thing to do, honestly, like a colorless Ugin where you could pay the loyalty ability of -X and exile all color or permanents with color or colored permanents with mana value X or less. So it's a little bit different, but Karn right now is trying to like blow up Phyrexia. So I figured exile all non-land permanents, and in the event that Karn is exactly 8 loyalty and you -8 and Karn goes to 0, Karn will turn back into a creature and then exile itself. So I don't think it's super broken that way because it should flip via state-based actions because, it's 0. State-based actions will activate first. Karn will go to the grave or try to go to the graveyard, but then flip back into a creature, exile itself, so you don't like constantly always have a Karn sitting in the void of the multiverse having destroyed everything else, just going, oh, guess it's just me as a 1/1.
It feels very Karn liberated, but instead of restarting the game, you're exiling all the this one is the original is exile all non-aura permanents exiled with Karn, but I like it.
Thanks.
This is a fun card. I do think it probably would not be played I wouldn't play it as a commander. I'd want this in a Planeswalker deck just to see how many times I can flip it.
Mm-hmm. Unless you if you have a Karn Silver Golem already that is like star equal to your artifacts or whatever, there might not be a downside to play this instead, but I don't actually know. I have no idea. I'm not
You know
a
what?
colorless deck aficionado.
I'm not either,
Yeah.
but I do like them. The Traxos players, did we make a broken Karn? You tell us.
Please tell us.
All right, my next transforming legendary is one that I said, don't you touch Kiora, when we found out that Tamio was going to be completed in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. I said, don't you do it. Don't you do it. So Kiora is a merfolk planeswalker from Zendikar and has been traveling the plains to strengthen her connection with ocean magic.
Okay.
And she summons krakens, serpents, and other terrors of the deep so she can defeat the Eldrazi, who are ruling her home plane, which obviously the story of Kiora came out before we had done the whole Zendikar Rising and Oath of the Gatewatch and Battle for Zendikar.
Right.
So we had originally seen that Kiora was going to go to Theros, but this is after her spark ignites, but she's really going to Theros to travel to get sea creatures. So let's talk about how her spark ignited, which is that she was swimming with her younger sister Turi, who there's literally no stories about Turi at all.
Okay.
It's just in the story. And they were just swimming out in the water when a huge serpent came out of nowhere to swallow them up. And so Kiora yelled to her sister to swim away. And the last thing that Kiora saw before the serpent swallows her is the panicked look on her sister's face, which is horrifying. What a terrible story. So her spark ignites and she planeswalks away. And we don't really know where, but this is when that Theros comes in. She goes to Theros and she goes, I'm going to get all these big creatures and I'm going to bring them back to Zendikar. And while she was there, she stole Thasagata the Sea's Bident. So that happened. And so she comes back to kind of fight these off. And that's kind of really most of what we know about Kiora. There's not really a whole lot more. We haven't seen Kiora since really Kiora Master of the Depths, other than the one that we got in War of the Spark,
Right.
Which wasn't really tied in lore wise. So I'm gonna make a Kiora, which is just a merfolk. So Kiora Cascade Scout. It's a creature merfolk 2/2 for 2 blue and a green. So 4 mana 2/2 merfolk. And I gave it the Kiora's Follower ability, which is tap it to untap target permanent. There are some Kioras that care about untapping permanents. I thought that fit pretty well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind. I mean, you can use it as ramp, or you can use it maybe kind of combo-y if you have something maybe once or twice. And then I have a flip ability that requires attacking with a specific creature type. So I saw it fitting to say at the end of combat, if this one was tricky, but I had to do it this way. But I said, at the end of combat, if you attacked with a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent creature, exile Kiora, then return her to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control. So it mattered about getting swallowed, obviously, by a Serpent. But I certainly couldn't make it when you get attacked by a serpent or whatever, because like then it's possible your deck can't work, right? You have to be able to do it on your own. So I figured it was most fitting that during a combat, if you attacked with one of the 4 creatures. And the reason I did it is because we had cards like Quest for Ula's Temple that came out with the original Zendikar block that cares about Krakens, Leviathans, Octopus, and Serpents. And a lot of the Kioras care about getting these big creature types.
For sure.
And I felt like it would be a home run for people who want to play sea creature decks anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Helmed by Kiora.
Yeah.
So I think this is a fun deck, or it would be a fun commander for that.
I think, and I even think like, even if you wanted to like quote unquote play it broken or whatever, I mean, you could play a Changeling or something that's like 1 mana and unblockable or something like that. So, you know, there's ways around having to build this as a Kraken themed deck if you don't want to do that.
And that's part of the reason why the cost is higher. I didn't want it to be too easy to flip, but I also couldn't make it super easy. This was tough. This one I think took me the most time coming up, because I kept changing it up. So now that we've attacked, right? So we're getting swallowed by a serpent. Kiora's going to flip into Kiora Herald of the Sea. I was also really proud of that name. God of the, Thassa, God of the Sea. Get it? I get it. Get it. So 4 loyalty with 3 abilities. The first one is +1, untap up to 1 target permanent you control.
Okay.
So still pretty on par with what Kioras can do.
Mm-hmm.
And then +1, reveal the top 2 cards of your library. You may put a creature or land from among them into your hand. There was kind of like a land and fogging thing that happened with the first Kiora. It feels very much maybe not necessarily what Kioras do anymore. So there's some card advantage here. And then -5, I wanted this one to be able to happen because you are playing with sea monsters, which is -5, search your library for a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent creature, put it onto the battlefield under your control. So I wasn't sure if this should be -5. I'm thinking now it probably should be -6 because there certainly are these creature types that say things like creatures without Island Walk or whatever can't swing. I don't remember the exact card.
Sure.
But I feel like if you could get this, you are also in the blue-green colors. So you've got things like Populate and all of that
sure.
that could easily get it. So I'm not stuck on the -5 here. And maybe the reveal 2 cards of your library and put a creature or land into your hand should maybe be a -. Maybe that should just be a -1. But I thought this was cool where the ultimate is she's doing what she set out to do, which is find big sea creatures to come to battle for her, which would be her ultimate.
Yeah, I do agree with you, I think, on increasing that ultimate to -6, because my first thought was actually if Kiora was all about channeling those Onaki ogre spirits in the Chain Veil, the +1 will actually be able to untap the Chain Veil, and then you can activate it again. And there's some combo potential. I mean, it's not like we don't already have a Planeswalker that could do that. I mean, Tezzeret the Seeker can untap like 2 artifacts, so it's like we have Planeswalkers that do that. So it's not over the top of a Planeswalker ability or anything like that. But maybe increasing that ultimate because of cards like that. I think your thought process is perfect.
Okay. So we're gonna do then. It's +1 untap target up to 1 target permanent. We're going to do -1 for the middle ability, and let's do -6 or even -7 because it is very easy to flip. So that is Kiora Cascade Scout and Kiora Herald of the Sea. Wizards, print this, please.
Print it. No, I
want to see it. You don't even have to pay me. It's free. It's yours. It's yours. Tweak it a little.
But I want my name somewhere on like the card somewhere.
Just like point. Just ATF somewhere. Just my initials somewhere in the in the artwork.
Well, then people are going to think that you did the artwork, though. I was thinking that too, and then it's like,
no, that's just put that on the artist line. But they could just put it like Kiora's holding the Biden, like scratch it into like the staff.
Oh, there you go. Like people scratch it into the side of a tree trunk. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So I know I talked about an artifact creature, but this next one is actually a creature that cares about artifacts. Spoiler, so is my other one. So this one is a card that we first saw actually in a conspiracy set. So it doesn't actually like super fit within the popular Magic storyline, and this is Duretti.
Did we first see it in Conspiracy, or I thought it was Commander?
Oh, it could have been
Conspiracy
Commander.
Come from Commander. I don't know which one came first, but we've seen 2 Durettis.
Yes, we have seen 2 Durettis. Yes, there was a mono red Duretti in the Commander set, and there was a red and black Rakdos Duretti in the Conspiracy Take the Crown, I believe it was.
I'll look it up while you explain.
So Duretti, the story behind how Duretti's spark ignited. So Duretti was an inventor on the plane of Fiora and wanted to become a master artificer by attending the academy in the high city of Poliana, which is, an expensive city to live in. It's New York, but for Fiora. So while facing heavy resistance from the city's elite, Duretti was, trying to work its way up into the higher ups. Everyone was like, no, that's a Duretti, that's a goblin, that's like a lower person. We don't want Duretti to be part of this thing. But that didn't stop Duretti from inventing. And unfortunately, one of Duretti's inventions, as a lot of goblin inventions do, exploded.
The Is It Know It too well.
Right? I think Duretti would fit in really well over in Ravnica, honestly. So during this explosion, Duretti unfortunately did lose both of his legs, but was able to planeswalk away, saving his life. He was able to discover a vast universe to explore, to increase his artificer acumen, and I do believe actually the the Ravnica D&D book might actually have Duretti in there as one of the bosses that you can fight. Don't quote me on that. Unless I'm right, then totally quote me on that.
I feel like it's Krenko, right? It has to be Krenko.
I remember a giant mech machine in
we did fight against something. So there's definitely something in that book.
Yes.
One of them is.
I do see Andy graciously putting the notes here. Commander 2014 was the mono red version, and 2016 was the second Duretti. Ironclad something.
Ingenious Iconoclast.
Oh, there it is.
So Ironclad is a tattoo shop by my house that did my Pokemon tattoo.
Oh, nice.
So that's why you
shout out. All right. So for my creature side, this one was pretty difficult. So we talked about some of this. So in this, I wanted one of Duretti's artifacts that he makes to explode in a way.
Right.
And that's going to create the flip. So we have Duretti Inventive Genius, a goblin creature 2/2 for 3 and a red. It says when Duretti Inventive Genius enters the battlefield, create the Crawler, a legendary 4/3 colorless artifact creature vehicle token with haste, reach, and crew 2. The Crawler was just, something that came up in my head. I know that, Duretti does have a mobile machine,
like spider legs,
that he uses after he becomes a planeswalker, but I imagine he had some inspiration as a creature too. So that's why I decided to keep it as the Crawler. And it's a vehicle, so he'll eventually be able to, or he can ride it, and it has crew 2, and he has 2 power, so he'll be able to crew it. This token also has, when the Crawler leaves play, so exile or destroy all artifacts you control, you create a colorless debris artifact token for each artifact destroyed this way. So debris, I put purposefully, has no other text on it. It is
okay. So it is just. And when I read this, I said it's the debris.
Yes,
is just an artifact sitting out that Karn cares about.
That's right.
Karn you made.
That's right. Or perhaps the other side of Duretti.
All right. I get it. So this is cool though, because you want to. There's already some sacrifice stuff in Duretti's, I guess, wheelhouse, right? The original Duretti sacrifices artifacts, returns artifacts from the graveyard to the battlefield. I like this, just an artifact. Debris. It's just generic debris.
Yes. And now the flip condition for Duretti Inventive Genius is if you control the Crawler when it leaves play, you exile Duretti Inventive Genius and return the Planeswalker side. So you could potentially sacrifice the Crawler yourself in order to flip Duretti, or you could crew it, swing into someone, force them to block with it or something. I wanted to give the Crawler reach so that you could use it as a blocker if you wanted to. Haste, you could use it right away when it comes out. 4 mana for a hasty 4/3 artifact creature is kind of okay, I think, and that's kind of what you have because you can crew the vehicle with Duretti right away. So that's the creature side.
I think that's fun. I'm into it. I'm sold. What do we get on the other side?
So the other side, we have Duretti Master Machinist with a starting loyalty of 3, a very simple +1 ability to create another one of those colorless artifact debris tokens. I did want to leave Duretti at 3 loyalty and have its second activated ability be able to activate when it does come out, which is a -3, which says sacrifice any number of artifacts you control, return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield, or put an artifact card from your hand into play with mana value equal to or less than the number of artifacts sacrificed this way. So you're destroying all of your artifacts and getting these debris tokens, or maybe you don't have any artifacts and it really wasn't a downside for you to flip it, and you have the 1 debris token or something. So you could sacrifice all your debris tokens, get another artifact out. Maybe you have an even bigger artifact in your hand that you want to get down into play, or a bigger artifact that you have put into your graveyard. But at the very least, you can get an artifact back that you ended up sacrificing during the flip. Maybe you weren't the one that flipped it. Maybe someone else was like, hey, I'm going to destroy your the Crawler token early or something, not when you planned on doing it, because it could be a huge downside if you don't play it right. So,
I think I like this side too. Yeah. I actually just like creating a bunch of tokens sitting out.
Sure.
The token player inside me just wants as many debris as I can get. I just want all the debris, and then to play out cards that make make constructs that are power and toughness equal to the number of artifacts you control. And I like this is in just red because you can add it to red-blue decks, like Brutaclads. Make everything debris.
Or,
you can add it to Saheeli, reduce costs based on artifacts.
Yeah, I like Joyra Weatherlight Captain that you draw a card whenever you cast a historic spell, because a lot of those artifacts you're really only casting to draw a card anyway. So sack them all to your planeswalker or to your creature.
Yeah, this Duretti's fun. This Duretti's a lot of fun. I think people would enjoy seeing that Duretti. I'm actually going to stay in red here as well, and I would like to talk about Tybalt briefly.
Yes.
Tybalt, the biography was pretty short, actually. So it said, lacking talent and discipline in his necromancy studies, Tybalt became consumed with hatred. His joys were that of torture and inflicting pain. Counseled by dark forces, he fused his soul with those of devils. Now he delights in hellish agony across the plains. So apparently he was a student of an Innistrad necromancer, and he tried to follow in his master's footsteps. And it says cobbling together and reanimating corpses, but he lacked skills for this kind of work. And he was getting more and more angry that he started turning his talents on humans. So his experiments were testing the ability of living organisms to withstand pain, using vermin at first, but eventually moving on to humans on Innistrad. So it's pretty rough. It says, as if summoned by the evil nature of these new experiments, devils began to gather near Tybalt's lab at night, whispering their strange to him. And it says they offered Tybalt insights into what fascinated him the most, which is the nature of pain. So this was wild. So it said, filled with this new sense of power, Tybalt grew sadistic and careless and oblivious to the whisperings of the townsfolk. It was only a matter of time before inquisitors kicked down the door of his lab, cornered him in a room which had a bunch of torture devices in it. And it said Tybalt should have been basically executed or jailed for life. And it said instead he invoked a potent and hateful spell from the devil's utterances and his own grim discoveries. The spell fused his own essence with theirs at the cost of experiencing all the pain he had ever inflicted on others. Oof. It's a lot. So it says in that moment, his spark ignited, flinging him across the multiverse and away from the Inquisitor's blades. Now, half devil, Tybalt is free to practice his art from plane to plane. So he's now a devil creature. That's wild. That had to have been really painful.
Real painful.
Yeah, at the cost of experiencing all the pain he had ever inflicted on anyone else. So we know that Tybalt became the Loki, Magic's Loki version, which was Velki, and has been ripping holes in the multiverse to move Phyrexians around, really just causing some chaos here. So we're going to try to turn this into a transforming legendary. So I came up with Tybalt, Torturous Necromancer, a 4/2 devil for 3, a black and a red. So 5 mana for a 4/2 devil. And it says when Tybalt enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. And then on your turn, this was really hard, but I knew what I wanted to do. So I'm going to explain it because the language is confusing, but it says on your turn at the beginning of each phase. I had to do it this way because it might not happen. I don't want this to happen on someone else's turn. So that's why I said on your turn. It says if Tybalt has taken 5 or more damage in this game, which I think is really difficult to track because you have to track permanence now, like permanent damage that had been dealt to something. It says exile Tybalt, then return him to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. So being a 4/2, you have to find a way to make Tybalt take 5 damage. It could be over a period of turns, blocking a bunch of 1/1s or dealing 1 damage to Tybalt himself. But he's a 4/2. So unless you find a way to give it indestructible or to, unless you can give it indestructible or something, it's gonna die. So you have to track until it hits 5. So it takes some work, and that's like the him feeling the pain inflicted on him from the others, right? It's more than he can even stand.
I have
because he would.
Keep going. Sorry.
No, and I thought about even doing pain counters and removing them.
What I was going to suggest.
I didn't want to invent something new that's not in the game. Fair. I just said I thought this was more difficult.
Yeah.
But it's also more difficult to track.
I particularly like that you incorporated black mana into the casting cost. We know that Valky was the first time that we saw black mana in a Tibalt casting cost. So I like that you stuck with that. And I think that's much more to the nature of Tibalt than just mono red. Mono red is chaos, but Tibalt is chaos and some evil.
Right. So now that we've done this, we're going to flip Tibalt. So now we're going to say he has taken the 5 damage this game. It is going to come back transformed as Tibalt Cruel Practitioner with 6 loyalty. And it has a static ability of, at the beginning of your upkeep, discard a card at random and draw a card. So there's got to be a little bit of chaos in this Tibalt. And it kind of harkens back to Tibalt the Fiend-Blooded, which had an ability to +1 draw a card and discard a card at random. So you're going to have to do that. And it has 2 abilities, a +2 and a -X. The +2 is Tibalt Cruel Practitioner, deals 2 damage to each creature your opponents control and each opponent. This damage cannot be prevented. So he's still kind of inflicting damage on all of the townsfolk and on your opponents. And then -X is exile target creature with mana value X. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. So if you want to grab a big creature, you can -X, and then you have a very small Tibalt that also is going to make you discard and draw at random. But you might also be able to hit, something decently large that your opponents have, as long as you've hit the flip. And I wanted the flip to have a lot of work, so I wanted to give it a pretty cool -X because you did a lot of work to make it take 5 damage.
Yeah, honestly, I think the +2 is really, really strong. I love that, to deal 2 damage each. You keep all the low toughness creatures out of the game, and those big toughness creatures you build up to stealing them from your opponents. This is awesome. I really like this design. I think this is my favorite one, honestly, of the 3 that you have here. It's so hard to get it to flip, but the flip side is so worth it. It's so cool.
Yeah, so Tibalt is not a good dude. Continues to not be a good dude on this card, but at least we can see his Spark Ignite in a way that I thought was interesting.
Yeah, no, I think he did a really good job with this one, and I would build this deck, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so one last Artifact Matters Flipwalker. This one is your favorite blue-black artificer, Tezzeret. So if you're not familiar with the spark igniting story of Tezzeret, Tezzeret was an initiate of a sect of mages called the Seekers of Karbot, where Tezzeret hoped to gain access to a sacred tome called the Codex Ethereum, which is a collection of a lot of knowledge from all these different artificers. And he wanted to learn things from Codex Ethereum. So after uncovering the conspiracy, at one point, Tezzeret did break into where the Codex Ethereum was, and he opened it, and it's I'm just going to learn some stuff early. Opened it, the Codex was empty. The biggest conspiracy on the Esper Shard. This was all a sham. Everything he was working up and towards doesn't even exist. And since he discovered it, the guards actually mortally wounded him. And he was able to have his spark ignite during this, and that mortal wound didn't end up killing him because he planeswalked over to the Shard of Grixis, where unfortunately he was saved by Nicol Bolas and forced into his servitude.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, all the way up until War
he
of the
can't
Spark.
catch a break. He just wants the secrets. There are no secrets, and now he has to work for Bolas.
He caught a break for a second, right? When Nicol Bolas saw its end on War of the Spark, but now it seems like he's working for the Phyrexians, and they got him by some form of something over his head. I don't know what. Maybe he's just an evil guy.
Yet.
Maybe he's just
but we know there's
guy.
a 4-story arc coming up, so we'll see more about the Phyrexians in the next year.
Right. So we get the creature Tezzeret, Student of Ethereum. So this is Tezzeret as an acolyte, really cares about Ethereum, is starting to replace actually some of his body parts with Ethereum at this point. So for 2, a blue and a black, you get a human artificer. Wasn't sure if I wanted to make this artificer artifact as well, creature, because he is part Ethereum. Maybe something to consider.
Oh, okay, sure.
with 2 different static abilities. One static ability and 1 flip condition. So static ability is at the beginning of your end step, mill 2 cards. So you're going to put 2 cards from your library into your graveyard.
That's trying to figure out the secrets.
That's trying to figure out the secrets. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have no cards in your graveyard, you get to flip Tezzeret. And that is figuring out that there's nothing there.
Oh, so the secrets don't exist. So they're going to go there on your journey, but you have to get rid of them for him to identify that there are no secrets.
That's right. So you have to somehow exile your own graveyard or something. Maybe you're going to shuffle them all back, but I wanted to make it so you mill at your end step and it triggers at your upkeep. So you have to either do it at instant speed at someone else's turn or have a rest in peace out or something that's going to automatically exile your graveyard or something along those lines. It's going to be pretty tough.
Okay. All right. I'm into it.
All right. So Tezzeret is going to flip into Tezzeret Vengeful Artificer.
Oh, he's mad.
He's real mad. But at the same time, he really cares about Ethereum more than anything else. And if you look at most Tezzeret Planeswalker cards, they're either creating like a Thopter or an Ethereum token, or it cares all about artifacts. So I went really deep into the Ethereum tokens here. I have a +1 where you simply create a colorless Ethereum artifact token, which is like very similar to a treasure token, or not a treasure token, a gold token, where you don't have to tap it, but you can sacrifice it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. It's going to help you ramp.
Okay.
Not too big of a deal. Also a +2 where you sacrifice an artifact you control. And if an artifact is sacrificed this way, create 2 colorless Ethereum artifact tokens that each have those abilities where you can sacrifice them for mana. Worded it this way because I wasn't sure that you could actually have a loyalty ability on a Planeswalker that you can't activate without another condition being met. So you can still +2 even if you don't have an artifact to sacrifice. You just only get the Ethereum if you sacrifice an artifact during the resolution of the loyalty ability.
Yeah, I think for usually it just says sacrifice up to 1 artifact you control.
There you go.
Yeah, I had the same issue with I think it was my first one, Domri, because it has to be give up to 1 creature haste.
Okay.
Or no, I actually just said target creature. Well, so yeah, a lot of them, they get around that by just saying up to.
Yes. And now for the last ability is a -4. I did have Tezzeret starting at 5 loyalty, so you'll be able to do this and keep Tezzeret alive. For a -4, it's destroy target artifact you don't control. And if an artifact is destroyed this way, create a colorless Ethereum artifact token. So you're creating Ethereum in all 3 of his abilities. He's in blue-black, so if you want to do the token strategy, artifact token strategy, maybe it can feed your time sieve or something to give you a bunch of extra turns. But it's kind of just a very typical Tezzeret thing. It's he doesn't go back and try to destroy the codex or anything, so that -4 about destroying artifacts really isn't tied to anything in his lore. He just cares about artifacts, and that's my Tezzeret.
It's going to be a Tezzeret that makes it easier for Tezzeret Master of the Bridge to come out because it has affinity for artifacts.
Yeah, this Tezzeret works really well in Oops All Tezzerets, that's for sure.
It does. I believe if I counted correctly while we were recording, there are currently 8 Tezzerets.
There
so
we
this
go.
would be number 9, but I doubt we're seeing the end of Tezzeret because he seems to be playing a pretty integral role. Even though we didn't see a Tezzeret on Neon Dynasty, Tezzeret was in the story. So I assume we get at least 1 more as part of the story.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if Glistening Oil works on him, or if like he's him already having half of his body be Ethereum. Maybe he's kind of resistant to it or something. I'm excited. Tezzeret's one of my favorite Planeswalkers in the multiverse to follow. He's kind of an anti-hero. He's always been forced into being a bad guy. You don't know if he's actually a bad guy yet or not, though. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this learning all of this was, I think, the most that I've learned about Tezzeret's story for the most part, other than, on Amonkhet was bringing over the zombies for War of the Spark and the planar bridge and all that fun stuff. So I hope everybody enjoyed us talking about the actual stories behind these Planeswalkers, and tell us how many of them we broke and made ridiculous cards for. Because as I'm looking at it now, the Tibalt that I made has an ETB effect that I think goes infinite with World Gorge Dragon.
Oh, perfect.
ETB deals 1 damage to each opponent. So maybe that has to change. Maybe it has to be you. 1 damage to you. Who knows?
To
But,
all players or something.
To
That way
all players.
You can end the game in a tie that way with World Gorger Dragon if everyone starts with the same life total.
You could, or I guess if you have higher life total. Anyway, wild stuff. So if anyone, though, listening has a pick for a transforming legendary creature that you want us to cover in another show, if we were to do this again, let us know. And that's going to be it. If you want to chat with us online, you can find me on Twitter at Andy Flory.
And you can find me on Twitter at WormCoilEngine. And we just want to thank you all for listening. And we're going to catch you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.